It really felt like a checkbox. It really felt like your dad died, so you have to go to therapy. There was no like effort to get me to buy into what therapy could actually do for me. What was the purpose? What was going on?
It was like, this is a thing that we're doing for this kid.
I didn't know that the depression and anxiety that I was experiencing could get better in therapy. That did not feel, that didn't feel true. No matter what people were saying, it didn't feel true because the therapy didn't feel like it was for me. The way that the therapist spoke to me, the things that she focused on and cared about were not aligned with the things that I focused on and cared about. It was really therapists imposing on me what is the healthy way to live life rather than meeting me where I am to discuss kind of what I see.
Right.
No.
I am a therapist, which I think is pretty relevant to this show.
A little bit.
I'm newly licensed, just like Rachel, which means I've only been practicing officially as a therapist for about 2 years. I didn't really believe in therapy. I thought it was BS. Thought it was stupid. So I think that's relevant. I grew up with 2 teen parents. I've lost my dad. I grew up witnessing some substance abuse. Struggled with my own depression and anxiety. Untreated, unmanaged until I was around 23, 24. Went to therapy, realized this is what I was made to do. I started working as a psych associate, which is basically like the lowest of the lowest on inpatient mental health units. We do all of the grunt work. We're like the nursing assistants of psych. And I did that for several years. I worked with kids who were suicidal, adults who had psychosis. I put people in restraints. I got swung on by grown men.
Gambit.
Ran to codes across the entire hospital. Imagine I'm sitting down talking to a kid. I hear something go up over the system and I have to take off on a 15-minute run into another building because somebody's being attacked. I did all of that and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I really want to do this shit.
Just a normal day at the office.
Normally at the office. Went to grad school at the U, which was pretty cool because when I was in my undergrad, I tried to go to the U and I didn't get in. So that was kind of dope that I got in for grad school. Went to school, was sorely disappointed by everybody I went to school with, which plays a lot into why I wanted to do this podcast. Started being a therapist myself on one of those psych units. Specifically, I'm a family therapist. I work with teens who are suicidal, homicidal, have significant trauma. We get kids at times who don't have anywhere else to go. And our goal is to help stabilize them through their crisis. We get kids in crisis and we're trying to save lives. So our goal is to figure out what's actually going on, do a real diagnosis of maybe why they don't want to be alive, or what's going on for them in their lives that is intolerable, and figure out how to get those support systems in the community so they can get out as quickly as possible. And that's the work I do.
I'm Rachel. And I was also born in Minneapolis. I didn't always know that I wanted to be a therapist.
But you always had access to therapy.
I always had access to therapy. I've been in therapy since I was 7. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old for the best. There was a lot of infidelity going on. There was a lot of kind of, my parents both describe it as big things going on in their relationship. And so my parents decided to put me in therapy when they divorced. And I think that I've been in therapy pretty consistently through then. I've taken a break maybe in college for a couple of years, but I don't think I started getting good therapy until, or at least therapy that felt...
No, good therapy. It's a word.
It is good therapy.
It's the word.
It is the word, good therapy, until probably the last couple of years. Therapy that felt meaningful and kind of directed by myself, I think. So I actually went to school in Chicago first. And I was a communications major. Thought I was going to go into like advertising or do something like that. I wanted to make a lot of money. And kind of in the back of my head was always like, this doesn't feel right. This isn't filling you. And my mom had been like, you should go and get your social work license and go back and do that. And I didn't. I actually came home and for a lot of reasons, mostly because I couldn't focus there. There was a lot going on in my life. My dad ended up going to prison after I graduated high school, and it kind of threw a lot of my world in for a loop. And so depression and anxiety kind of were kind of pivotal in my college years and kind of followed me home. And I think it was my first time kind of dealing with like deep self-esteem issues and kind of deep like depression and going through like a depressive episode during that time. And that kind of shifted my gears towards doing something more conducive to like my mental health and like the pacing of life that I wanted. And so I got a degree in sociology, actually. I didn't go and get my social work degree. And then I went straight into getting my master's for getting in my social work degree, my MSW. I ended up working at a day treatment, which is a place where kids come either before, during, or after school in different programs. My program, they came for a half day and then went back to school, and where they learn kind of social, emotional regulation skills. They're kind of having trouble at home. They're having trouble at school, maybe in other areas of their life. And so they're learning how to be pro-social and be together with it as adults and kids. And that was a really huge learning curve for me. I'd kind of never been in any setting, like professionally in a therapeutic setting or social work setting. And so there was a lot of new terminology. There's a lot of things I really had to learn on the fly. And so the work that I do now is as a clinical therapist at a private practice, working with individuals and couples.
Therapy felt inaccessible to me because therapists felt like they weren't speaking to me. I didn't feel seen by the people in the mental health profession that I interacted with until I got a therapist at 23, 24. When my dad passed away, I went and did a grief group. I did not connect with that therapist or the people in that group. And then I had an individual therapist I also didn't connect with. And so I immediately wrote it off. It didn't feel like it was for me. It felt very inaccessible. And when I was getting therapy from people, they didn't look like me. Their experience wasn't similar to mine. And I felt as though I was spending a lot of time translating.
And did you feel like you were kind of having the experience of being like, there's something wrong with you, and so therefore this is meant to kind of make you not fall in line, but kind of manage something that you weren't, like, at that age you couldn't even know? It was like there are things happening with Jave, and so it's kind of therapy is being kind of put upon you.
It really felt like a checkbox. It really felt like your dad died, so you have to go to therapy. There was no effort to get me to buy into what therapy could actually do for me. What was the purpose? What was going on?
It was like, this is a thing that we're doing for this kid.
I didn't know that the depression and anxiety that I was experiencing could get better in therapy. That did not feel, that didn't feel true. No matter what people were saying, it didn't feel true because the therapy didn't feel like it was for me. The way that the therapist spoke to me, the things that she focused on and cared about were not aligned with the things that I focused on and cared about. It was really therapists imposing on me what is the healthy way to live life rather than meeting me where I am to discuss kind of what I see.
Right. When was for you kind of a pivotal moment of, therapy could be different?
I wasn't functioning. That's why I went to therapy. I stopped functioning. I wasn't doing anything but going to work. This was like a gap between undergrad and grad school. I hadn't applied to grad school or anything like that. But I had went to undergrad thinking I was going to be a physical therapist. I did everything that I would need to apply to a PhD program for physical therapy. I realized the last year of school that I didn't want to be a physical therapist, but I put all this time and money into my degree, so I was going to finish it. And I wasn't functioning. And I went and saw a therapist who didn't do a lot of therapy jargon and words and just kind of met me where I was. She just kind of sat with me and was sad with me for a long time. And that was the work that we did. And that fostered a space where I was able to develop personally. She was modeling what it felt like to be in a safe relationship, to be inquisitive, to have someone be curious about you and invested in you, but also have them not feel like they're being impacted by what you're telling them, or like in the same way it would be like a parent or a friend. You know, the space felt
Just
different.
holding space for you.
Yes, it felt different. Yeah. And I think that's kind of where, when we segue into our own show, I think our show is about accessibility. I think it's about the fact that we both believe that therapy is beneficial and can be beneficial if you get the right therapist and the right treatment.
Right. We've both seen the impacts in our own lives of how it feels to be kind of, whether it's racially or kind of your own experience being reflected in the therapeutic relationship and how important that is. And I like what you said too about it's kind of like a giving back. It's, oh, I've had this. I want others to have this experience too, or know that it's possible at least to have this experience.
And when I think about therapy rebranded, I quite literally feel like therapy needs a rebrand. The branding on therapy is not branded towards...
Say it again.
Therapy needs a rebrand. Yes. It's not branded towards people who are not white and middle class. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of assumptions in a lot of therapeutic spaces around what's causing you to be mentally ill, what's causing you to be unhappy, and what's going to make you feel better, and what you're going to care about. And I think every culture has a different answer to that. And right now, people are feeling like, I don't want to go into therapy and teach my therapist or explain something to my therapist or be misunderstood. It won't be helpful. I literally have Black people say to me all the time, that's white people shit. And I want to, investing in your mental wellness is not white people shit. It's for everybody. It's for everybody. And I feel like the branding around therapy is what makes it uncomfortable for a lot of people. What they're expecting and anticipating. It feels inaccessible. It feels like this thing far away that you're trying.
And there's a certain level of harm, I think, that like therapy is associated with social work, and social work has done a lot of harm. And so I think for Black and brown people and other marginalized identities, they're like, but what is this? Like, what is this going to entail? Like, how much am I going to give? Like, how much is this going to be used against me? And so also like learning that there are mental health professionals out there who are interrogating themselves in the space, or are interrogating the field, or are bringing up hard things. They're not just trying to kind of go along with what's been done. I think that also feels safe for kind of hopefully our audience too.
Part of the reason we're doing the show is because we want therapy to be accessible. We want people to see themselves reflected in therapy because I think it's valuable. And I want people to see therapists as people who are also growing and learning. One, because it's important for you to have realistic expectations of your therapist. And two, because I don't want you to feel like it's somebody with all their shit figured out judging you. A good therapist will make you feel like they're another person too, whose job is to help other people figure out themselves. I think if you're invested at all in your own personal growth, or curious about how therapists, people, Black women,
Black people
see the world, our perspective on life, our perspective on these topics and the things that we're bumping up against, just like you are when we're trying to have fulfilling and happy lives.
Right. And I think the thing that, to go back to kind of our origin kind of story, is that this came out of us just like being really good friends outside of here and having really interesting, meaningful, deep conversations and supporting each other. And kind of Javay, you came to me and were like, we should talk about this more openly and more broadly. And I'm sure other people also are having these conversations. And so I think it's also, people are getting a glimpse into kind of just our relationship and our world and kind of what's going on with us. And kind of then we can like disseminate also like what we're learning in real time. So it's like a reciprocal relationship, or that's kind of, hopefully is kind of what it becomes, I think, for the both of us.
Come grow with us.
Come grow with us.
We're going to be live streaming on YouTube. You can join those with us for free. Those will be on Thursday nights at 8:30. We don't do every Thursday, but we'll be promoting before the Thursdays we do them.
They're a lot of fun.
Yep. You can get our live streams also on anywhere and all places you download podcasts. We also have a Patreon where we have a weekly live episode that we drop onto Patreon exclusively, where we discuss cases and different consultations, also personal stuff, stories we don't want to go onto.
It's a little bit more cash.
It's a little bit more cash. We do it in Rachel's bed.
We sit in my bedroom.
It's very fun.
It's very fun.
We cover a lot of light topics, but also I think personal things that maybe we wouldn't want to be on YouTube. So if you're interested in joining the community, having more access to us, follow us on Patreon for $5 a month. You get 4 extra episodes plus bonus content.
Which is a lot, y'all.
So yeah, welcome to Therapy Rebranded.
My man's just a fan. Now you understand. Let's hit another scene.